My beautiful souls. Welcome to another show. I'm Michaela Jones, ND, naturopath, energy healer, and integrative holistic health specialist with Living Naturally for Life. And this is my good friend, Dr. Michelle Greenwell, PhD, in complementary and integrative health with the Greenwell Center for Holistic Health. Today, we are going to be tackling a topic that so many of us struggle with: change. Why do we resist it, even when we know it's good for us? How can we overcome that resistance and embrace new patterns that support better health, both physically and emotionally? As a naturopath, I have a passion for exploring how our emotions, beliefs, and stories shape our physical health and well being. Michelle, being a Tai Chi and movement specialist, brings an incredible insight into how our bodies hold on to old patterns and how mindful movement can help us create new ones. So, together, we'll be exploring the roots of resistance, why we struggle with change, and uncovering the emotional and physical factors that keep us stuck, and sharing strategies to help us break free. So, whether you're trying to adopt a healthier habits, move more freely, or simply understand the connection between your mind and body, this episode is for you. So, let's dive in. Hi, Michelle. Happy to have you back again.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. This is such a great conversation.
It really is. Yeah, we were having that discussion a few weeks ago. It's like, okay, what are we going to talk about next? And this just kind of came up, because we've seen it so much with the clients that we work with. It's like they come to us, they know they need to change, we give them, tools, we give them things to do, but then they still struggle to make those changes, even though they know they need to make the changes and they've come to us for assistance. They still just have a hard time doing that. So, yeah, I think this is a really, really great topic for us to discuss today. But before we get started, tell us, what tea do you have in your cup today?
All right, I'm going to tell you about the first one, and then somewhere in the conversation, when we change to a topic, I'll bring you the second one. But the first one is
Okay.
releasing the warrior. And the reason is a lot of people, when they have resistance to change, it's the wood element that is really struggling. And so that would be liver and gallbladder. Liver
Hmm.
and gallbladder have to do with the emotions of anger and resentment. Now, not saying you have to have those emotions in order to make a change, but change sometimes comes with that resistance, that push, that hardness that comes with it. And so being able to sip on this tea means we might be able to shift through those hard parts with much more ease and grace. And the phrase that is on it, there's actually four altogether, but the one on the front is: linked to the wood element, this blend supports opening up to express what is most important, to nourish, rejuvenate, and reorganize for full potential. I thought
Oh,
it just fit
nice.
perfectly for our conversation.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so let's jump in. All right, so our first point that we need to lead off with is the role of emotional resistance in physical health and change. For those of you who are just joining us, all of our little talks are all about mind body connection, because you can't separate it. When you have whole health, you got to look at the emotional factors, the physical factors, the spiritual factors, everything. So sometimes when there's physical health issues, not sometimes, just about all the time, there's some physical issue, there's an emotional component to it. I always tell everyone, it's like every physical challenge has an emotional anchor. It just is. Okay, so it's very important for us to understand those emotional concepts when we're trying to make change and when we're trying to adjust our physical health as well. So I'm going to let Michelle start off with this particular point, about the emotional resistance in physical health and change. So, what is your take on this, Michelle?
So, when we have an experience, our emotions are translated into tissue in our body. And that tissue then provides um, a different way of moving. So it could be, when you go to lift your leg and your quads are going to do the muscle power, and the hamstrings, they're going to work in opposition with each other. But you're going to go to do that movement, but then all of a sudden you have this emotional upheaval that happens right at the moment that you went to lift your leg, and your leg went, ooh, you weren't very safe when you went to lift your leg. So I'm going to just pocket that idea so I can remember next time you go to lift your leg, what happened? You fell over. And
Right.
that pocket, it doesn't work. It's not valuable. However, the body thinks it's keeping you safe. And so those patterns over time, you can imagine all the experiences that you have. Over time, you end up with this book that's all the way through your body. We don't know the interconnections of all these pieces, but they create some really wild patterns of movement that either can be supporting us or not supporting us. And then that's how we run into trouble with those blocks to change, because those patterns are stuck and we've got to let them go.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, and from my perspective, it's like emotional blockages and unresolved emotions. They create resistance to change on a physical level, in many ways, and one of which a lot of people are aware of, but they don't understand. Just how big of an issue it is like the chronic stress response. It's like you have emotions like fear and anger and grief, and they're just like all consuming and everything, that it creates these elevated levels of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And then over time, it causes all kinds of physical issues, from muscle tension to digestive problems to inflammation, all of which is going to affect the physical health of the body. It can also lead to things, like, nervous system dysregulation, or disruption in your energy flow in your bodies. And that's kind of where you talk about in the Tai Chi, because Tai Chi is all about the energy flow in the body. So all of these emotional blockages also blocks the energy flow through the body as well, which in turn is going to affect what your physical body is able to do, which is going to affect your overall health. So, and when you have these emotions and they're creating those blockages, it makes it difficult for you to make those changes, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. I don't want to give everything away, in the first 5 minutes, but, you know, looking forward, it's going to be things, along the lines of, uh, what was I going to say? I don't know. It's been a day. It's been a week. So, let's just move to the next point. We'll get back to it. I'll remember
Well,
what I was saying.
can I bring something in there? Maybe it's my brainwave thinking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because someone said to me the other day about Tai Chi massage, and
Uh-huh.
I thought, oh, that's such a great term, because a lot of people will wait until their body is so riddled with that stress response that they'll go for
Yeah,
the massage, and then they'll say, I need a deep tissue massage,
yeah.
because it's so embedded, not realizing that maybe lighter might be easier, because then you can just kind of get the flow started. But what we do in Tai Chi, when you practice every day, is you're doing a daily massage. And that daily massage means that you're releasing and letting go and allowing that flow to
Mm,
happen on a very gentle way. And a lot of times we think about, we need to come at it hard because there's so much embedded in there. But it's the ease and the grace that allows for change to happen. And that's where that massage is just so important.
right, right. Okay, yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And actually, when you started saying that, that reminded me of the point that I was going to make, and that was about being stuck. So those emotional triggers get stuck in the body, get stuck in the physical body, which makes us stuck to make those changes that are needed, even on the emotional and the physical level. Particularly like the chronic stress response. That's basically fight, flight, or freeze. Freeze, in essence, is being stuck. And some people also, call it fawn. You know, so yeah. So, all right, let's get into the next point. So, the importance of goal setting and intention. for lasting change. So we're coming to the point, we know we need to make the change. We know, and and we're having a hard time making the change. So the next step would be to set that intention for change. So these are the goals. So from your perspective, why is that important? So from my perspective, it's all about, when we can create a clear emotional vision for our intention, it helps us to establish our why. And I feel like that why is part of what keeps us going. When things aren't working right or is not doing what, we thought it was going to do, if we can go back and remember our why, it can help us overcome the obstacles of stuckness. So what is your perspective on that, on the goal setting and the intention, to make those lasting changes?
I completely agree. And I live every day intentionally set and activities intentionally set. I set intention before we started today. We have intentions with the tea. Everything has a reason because I want to be healing every moment of my day. I want to be working towards where I'm going. You would not get in the car and say, "Go car." You would get in the car and say, "I'm going to the store." And the car goes, "Oh,
Right.
okay. We now know where we're going." And off you drive. But you would never get in the car and not know where you were going. But if we live our lives not knowing where we're going, why get on the wagon of change? You don't need to. It's really easy to stay in front of the TV. It's really easy not to participate in a club. It's easy not to finish that craft project because why? Why would you need to? But if you were thinking about, I'm going to visit my grandmother, and when I go, I really want to take her this picture I've been working on, your goal is now set. But then you can go beyond that. It's not just the physical pieces, it's about the quality. What kind of visit do you want to have when you get there? What do you want to feel like? What do you want to leave her with when you finish your visit? So you're going well beyond just that initial piece because that's where the nuggets are. You've already thought well beyond that. And at the other end, it's an excuse me, it's an opportunity for a better conversation and for people to really come together and for your grandmother to actually anticipate and be ready. And you may think that's funny coming from your thinking about it, but just by you thinking about it, it inspires other people,
Yeah.
other things. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because your thought processes affect how you act, which is going to affect how people react. So your intention can absolutely change the whole environment.
mhm. And isn't it
Absolutely.
wonderful when you say, "I'm bringing you something special," and people go, "Oh, I get something special." And then you think, well, if I'm getting something special, what does that mean I should do? And then all of a sudden you have an inspiration for more than what you started with. So that visit to grandma's can be a lot different because of the way you start your conversations, the way you engage with things. And I think part of my dance background, where thinking choreographies through from the beginning of a dance to the end, has been one of the greatest gifts of being in the dance world, is that I always have to foresee what it's going to look like in the end. And I always have to be able to look through the whole journey. And I do that when I'm anticipating an activity, a gathering, a conversation. I'm always, what is the ultimate goal that I want out of that conversation? Where do I want it to go? How do I want it to finish? And then change becomes nothing because you already know where you want to go. So why would you resist it? It's just
Right.
delightful to just go, oh, I need to go this way. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. For those of you who are watching, let's send Michelle some extra energy here. She is with us today despite being a little under the weather. That's how committed she is to bringing you this information that we feel like everyone has has a need for. We are dedicated, both of us are dedicated to being able to educate you guys and bring you information that can just make your lives just a little bit better. So thank you for joining us today. Okay, so let's send Michelle some extra extra
Thank you.
extra good positive energy. All right. So again, we were talking about the importance of goal setting and intention when we're trying to make a lasting change. And the point that I brought up was about, setting those goals and those intentions can help you establish your why. I know a lot of you have always have heard about, okay, what's your why? What's your why? That's one of the things that is often said, when you're trying to make changes is what's your why? What's your why? You hear it a lot in like the weight loss industry or any other healthcare, but I hear it a lot in the weight loss industry. It's like, what's your why? It's like, well, I want to be able to run around with my kids. I want to be able to walk up some stairs without getting winded. I want to be able to buy new clothes. So what is your why? Establishing that can help you not only with getting over the humps that are inevitably going to come. It can also help you with your motivation and your purpose, and it can keep you engaged because it engages both the conscious and the subconscious mind, because we got all this stuff that's buried deep down inside of us too that plays a huge part of this, which we're going to talk about a little bit next. And having your why can help you increase your commitment and focus to what it is that you're really trying to achieve. It's really easy to just say, oh, I want to do this, and then you don't do anything about it. You don't set your intention, you don't set any goals, and then you look around a month from now and it's like, well, I didn't do anything. Well, that's because you didn't set your intention, you didn't set your goal, you didn't follow it through. You need that GPS, you need that to get you from point A to point B. And if you don't have that GPS, it's difficult to end up in the place that you were intending to go because you haven't programmed your system, if you will. So, and let's face it, our brains is a big computer, lots of programs up there. So sometimes you need to replace the old programming with new programming. And one of the ways to get that new programming in there is goal setting and intention. So let's move to the next point, and this is about mind body system, because that's what Michelle and I are all about. It's the mind body connection. Everything that we talk about, it's about mind body connection. And so we're going to talk a little bit now about why the mind body systems falls into what we call holding patterns. And so from my perspective, when you think about the mind body system and holding patterns, you can think of things like the programming in your brain, like I just talked about, the nerves. When you do things, your brain creates these patterns because it wants to be efficient. So and it remembers everything. So it just kind of catalogs it in there. And so when you create these these habits, if you will, that are born from repeated emotional stress or trauma, it can lead to resistance when you're trying to implement changes because those patterns have become hardwired into your brain. So it's kind of like if you ever have pets and you let your pets outside and they have a thing that they like to do, and they will go out the back door or whatever, and they'll go straight to the fence, or they'll go over here and they'll go over there, and they do the same thing every day. Eventually you have a path that is worn through your yard because that pet keeps going that same path because it's their habit, it's what they do. We are the same way. So when we keep doing the same thing over and over again, that path gets hard worn, and so it's in our brains. So then when we're trying to make that change, it can be difficult because those old patterns are still there, and it keeps us in that place. And so this is what we talk about, the neural pathways and neuroplasticity, which is for another talk that we don't have enough time to really get deep into that. But, if you ever want to chat about that, just reach out to me and I'll give you a whole bunch of information on neuroplasticity. But just know that you can rewire your brain. But one of the reasons that makes it difficult to make that change when you're trying to make the change is because of the hardwiring in your brain. And so you have to do things to try to overcome the old habits, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. But I'm going to hand this over to Michelle for the moment because I can keep talking because I want to hear her take on this. So, what is your take on this?
Well, it kind of it laps back to the last question too, in that you have to be living in your goal. So you can't say, I want to, losing weight is a good one because everybody says, I want to lose weight. And then why? Why? Because I want to play with my kids on the floor. Then play with the kids on the floor. Don't wait until you've lost the weight to play with the kids on the floor. You play with the kids on the floor because that's your goal. And every time you go down to the floor and you ache and you complain and you, etc., you go, this isn't working for me. But if you sit up in the chair and you don't participate, you say, well, after I've lost 20 pounds, then I'll get down on the floor. You're never going to get there because you're nice and comfortable where you are. Why would you move? But you have to really go to the goal and be in the goal. And then what you discover in there is other things that you hadn't thought about. And then that is when change becomes easy because you go, oh, I'd really like that. I'd really like to be able to build the whole floor out. Let's get rid of the couch. And then all of a sudden the kids are like, wow, look at what we can do with these toys. And you're like, yeah, and let's add this and that. And pretty soon you've forgotten that the couch was so comfortable to sit on, the habit's gone. But it
Yeah.
wasn't a hard habit that you walked in, you looked at the couch, you went, oh, I'd be so comfortable there. I'm going to sit on the hard floor. You actually just have forgotten because you're so excited about being in the new place. And we have to approach the activities that we do in that attitude. And sometimes we don't know where the solution is because we're trying to solve it with the old habits and the old ways of thinking. And you've got to sit in that place you want to be and look around because new ideas are going to come in. That's the nugget of creating change.
Oh, awesome. I love that. And when you were talking, it made me think of some other things too. When you were saying about sitting on the floor and the aches and the pains and everything, and being, in your goal. And that brought me back to, again, it's like the memory that gets stored in the body. And so some of those aches and pains can literally be muscle memory. It's like, okay, so you're remembering, oh, it hurts me when I get down on the floor. So you don't want to get down on the floor. Then you get down on the floor and the muscle memory goes, oh yeah, this is supposed to hurt. So it hurts. So it's like little things like that, and we also have to remember too that our mind's number one goal is to keep us safe. So sometimes what the known and the comfortable is the safety zone. And sometimes getting out of that safety zone requires extra effort because our body wants to keep us in that safety zone. And so we got things, we're working against things like not only the neural pathways, but, muscle memory and emotional memory. These are all from the past stuff. And then we got limiting beliefs, which limiting beliefs sometimes they're things that just kind of goes back to childhood and they're just kind of part of our upbringing, that kind of thing. But sometimes it's also from things that life has taught us that we just kind of latched onto and we stored it. And it can be really hard to get past that and to overcome that. So those of you that are trying to make change and you're finding it difficult to make those change, just know that it's not all your fault, but there is something you can do about it. Yes, it is difficult, but you have to want it and you have to put the things in place to make it easier for you to make those changes to overcome those old patterns in order to achieve what it is that you're looking for. So, which brings us to the next point, which is about releasing old patterns. So, we're going to talk about now about releasing old patterns through new physical and emotional practices. Remember, mind and body, you can't separate it. They're interconnected. And sometimes you got to do a little bit on both ends. Okay. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to let Michelle take point on this one. So why don't you start, Michelle, with this one? I always
Okay.
love your take on this stuff. So
So mind and body go together. And a lot of times we think about, well, I'll just think it and make it work. But you actually have to move through it. And this is where somatic works, where you could be putting on your favorite piece of music, a song that really inspires you, and you start moving your body in a way that feels really good. And it can be a dance in the kitchen that you just do all by yourself. It could be one that you go out into the backyard, put your feet into nature. But what you're really doing is you're connecting in with the pathways of ease. And so much of what we do in the day is either frozen, which is sitting at your desk, driving a car, locked into a project that you're working on, or patterns that you have at work that are repetitive patterns. When you let those go and you move into that place of ease, the mind releases. And so those holding patterns of resistance let go. And you have this opportunity then from that space to say, now what do I want? Because it's really difficult to be frozen. You've been in front of your computer for 4 hours and you say, okay, I'm going to goal set. I want to lose weight. And you're like all tight. Well, first thing you're going to want to do is go to the fridge to find where the chocolate is. And then you're going to think, while I'm here, what else can I do? And I'm just going to grab this because it's easy. I'm not going to cook a full meal because you're just like so tight. But if you took that time, found that piece of music, you started to move the way you wanted, you went for a walk, you did some Tai Chi, maybe some yoga, and you really got the looseness and the openness. Then when you got to the kitchen, you'd be saying, it would be awesome if I made. And then you think about something that's got so much more around it. The herbs, the vegetables, the food, slow cooking, putting something on the stove, warming it up. That now changes your response to how you want to live and how you want to go through things. And it's when you make those changes into ease, then when you try to make a change for something, you're in the ease zone. You're no longer in the resistance zone or the pushback zone or the I can't do it zone. You've gone into, I feel really good at the moment and this feels lovely. And then you start making your decisions from there.
yeah, yeah, awesome. So from my perspective, I often talk about, limiting beliefs and, emotional anchors and things of that nature because they do affect our physical body. So a lot of people may be wondering, well, how does this actually affect our physical body? Well, here's the thing. So, limiting beliefs, they're generally like these deep rooted, often subconscious ideas about ourselves or about the world that we hold on to. And that affects our actions. For example, if you have a limiting belief of I'm not good enough or I'll never succeed, and you set a goal, guess what? You're not going to succeed because deep down you believe that you can't succeed. So, which makes it harder for you to make the changes that you need to succeed in achieving the goal that you set because deep down you believe that you can't succeed. I see this a lot. Again, limiting beliefs come in different forms. They can be, things that life has taught us or society has taught us, things that we believe, that we see out in the world that affects how we believe. And when we believe certain things, it influences our behavior, our decision making process, and it can influence our personal growth and stunt our own growth. So when you're trying to make changes, which is basically personal growth, these limiting beliefs can keep you from growing more because you're holding yourself back. You're literally believing that you cannot do what it is that you're set out to do. So no matter what you do, you're going to always end up either not taking the steps that you need to get to the next point, or you're going to self sabotage yourself. I see it so often. It's, we just sabotage yourself, and it comes down to these limiting beliefs. But then, beyond the limiting beliefs, we also have these negative emotions that get stuck in our minds and our bodies, and emotions are directly related to habits. So emotions can drive habits. Again, I hate to keep dwelling on the weight loss. That's one that's just like out there a lot, and a lot of people understand it. So you think about things like emotional eating. It's like you get upset. Food is your comfort, so you eat. So that emotion of upset triggers you to eat more stuff. So you have your why, you've set your goal, and you know what it is you need to do, but something comes along and upsets you, whether it's fear, it's anger, or whatever, and you go back to the old habit, or you go and you eat because food is your comfort.
Yeah, I changed it over to tea is my comfort. See, so I got a problem. I don't know how to solve it. Which tea is going to be the tea that can support that? And then I'm not worried about where is the chocolate, how much sugar will I consume, all those
Exactly.
lovely
And it's
things, right?
yeah, that's like the habit replacement, which I highly encourage people to do. It's like try to substitute an old habit for something positive that you can. I think it's called habit stacking. I think someone coined that phrase, habit stacking. So it's like you put something positive in place of the negative, and so eventually, it will move itself out. But even beyond that, we talk about the old patterns too. I touched on it a little bit about old patterns, and it provides false comfort and safety. It's that safety zone. It's like we're comfortable in what we know. And sometimes when we're trying to make change, it's unknown. So then the fear of the unknown kind of comes into play. And so we come back into our shell because that's where we feel comfortable. Because um, another one that plays in this is like fear of failure. It's like you can't fail if you don't try. So you get back into the comfort zone. So it keeps you safe from failing.
I have two phrases that I've kind of kept with me um, over the years. And one I walked past on the bookshelf this morning, and I kind of chuckled at it because it's just a little banner that says, "Actually, I can." And that one for a long time was when I wasn't quite sure if I could do this. I would just look at the sign, "I can." And the other one was, as a performer, it was very selfish for you to be nervous on stage because the audience came to see a performance and their expectation is that you're going to make them feel comfortable. But by you being nervous in front of them, you make them feel uncomfortable, then you will have failed at your performance. And so I've always kept in my mind, as a performer, which is what we all are when we're going about our day doing our things that we're not quite sure of, we are in a responsibility that we hold the space for the people who come to us to feel comfortable with what we're doing. And we might not know exactly what we're doing, but we're going to do our very best. And so if you hold that attitude, then that nervousness of I'm not good enough or I can't do it can be let go because there's no room for it. There's only room
Yeah,
for going forward.
awesome. Yeah, sometimes when we're trying to make change, in addition to setting those goals as we talked about, we have to make the space for making the change and going forward. So it's kind of like if you're at home and you're parked in your driveway and there's something behind you, you can't get out of the driveway. So sometimes you have to remove the stuff that's in your way in order for you to be able to move forward. So you got to remove those roadblocks. And that's part of what we've been talking about here is those roadblocks, and some of those roadblocks being the limiting beliefs, the emotions, the patterns, the 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 faulty thoughts and the faulty thought processes, the old behaviors, the old stories, if you will, old stories. So yeah, so awesome. All right, so I could keep talking about as many of our discussions. I could just keep going on and on and
I
on
know.
about these things, but we got to move on to the next point, which is about how our environment and our social circles
Mm.
influence our ability to change. Now, this is a big one, okay? So listen up. If you haven't paid any attention to any of the rest of this one is very, very important, okay? So I'll start a little bit here, and then I'll let Michelle chime in. And of course, as we usually do, we'll probably go back and forth. But one of the biggest things about our environment and our social circles is that when we're trying to make change, our environment can either work to support us and help us make that change, or it works against us and hinders our change. Okay. So, for instance, we're going to go back to the weight loss just because most people understand that. When you're trying to lose weight, it's easier to do that if you have people around you that are supporting your journey, that are encouraging you, and helping you, giving you the high five, when you lose a couple of pounds, or when you make healthier food choices. They are supporting you, they're encouraging you, your loved ones that are surrounding you, and they're all for you being healthier, and they're expressing that for you. It makes it easier for you to make those changes as you go forward. On the other hand, if you have people around you that go, well, what do you want to lose weight for? I think you're fine just the way that you are. Or, you're never going to be able to do that. That will knock the wind right out of you faster than anything else. So it's really important for us to surround ourselves with people that are going to have a positive influence on the change that we're trying to make, whatever that change is, because it'll make it easier to make those changes and stick with them. Whereas opposed to someone that is saying negative things about it. It's also important too to sometimes we have to also change our physical environments. Again, I'm gonna go back to the weight loss because everybody understands that. It's like you want to lose some weight. You can't do that if you have a house full of junk food. So you have to get rid of all of the stuff that you can't eat sometimes when you're first starting, because it's too easy for you to just go in and grab that snack that you know it's not good for you. So being able to clean out that environment makes it easier for you to make those changes that you're trying to make. So the people around you, your environment, your community, they're all going to have a big part to play in making these changes. It can either make it easier for you or make it harder for you. So what's your take on this, Michelle? I know you do a lot of community stuff, so I know that you know a lot about community and have seen the dynamics of community and all of that. So I want to hear your take on this.
Well, what I can say from this week, having been sick, is I missed my Tai Chi classes. And my Tai Chi groups, I sent a message to say I will not be there, but thank you for sending the energy back from class to me. And both times I went from lying flat out on the couch to coming up and then being able to move around the house and get things done and be active. So the power of a community was so evident. And you don't always, it's not the interaction that you do face to face, it's the energy that's created by that community. and we're all there for each other. And the thing about making changes is you've already been in the place you've been and you've developed relationships that have not been supporting you. So you have to be prepared that some of those relationships are not going to survive.
Yeah.
But the other part is there are relationships out there that are going to blossom. And there are also going to be new relationships you never knew existed that are going to be very rich. And the mediocre that you're leaving behind will be quickly forgotten when that richness starts to come through. The other piece is when you engage with someone with the intention to heal, the enzymes in both people immediately react in the body and move towards healing. So if you have people in your life who are not supporting your healing, then that's going to be counterproductive. You need to find those people who automatically just engage with it could be a smile, it can just be, hi, I see you. And that hi, I see you is enough to spark you into being able to do something better. And so that's really valuable to think about. And also to know that it's okay for those losses to happen. It may be scary, but once you've let go of them, oh my gosh, where could you be? I moved across the country. I sold my business. We packed everything up. I left my entire family. We moved across the entire country to live in a place where we don't have any family. But with all that angst that went on with it, there's so much that I've done as a result of making those changes. I'm very strong with my family, even though we live so far away, but we have found new ways to communicate and new things that have value for us. But then I have the growth that has happened for me because of the changes that I made. I was very specific on my what I wanted in my outcome, and I've achieved that and well beyond. But I had no idea that capacity was even there because the one goal I had blossomed into this magnificent Greenwell Center for Holistic Health. I never imagined. I just thought one little foot rub, if I could just get that out to dancers, that was my goal. But you see how it changed in
Yeah.
capacity. And so for people to just realize that the relationships are important, the change is important, and then that connection that you're making is going to be all the difference. And again, it's going back to ease because a lot of it can be very difficult, but you want to go to where it's ease. And so I shifted T. I have to say this because I need to bring the second T in. So this is the Mission for Change Community T. In community, we are empowered for change. That's the intention on the package. And so when I know that I'm going to be meeting with a group of people, I'm going to be actively participating in some kind of project, that's the tea I'd love everybody to be drinking if possible. And if not, then for sure it's the tea I'm drinking because I want to make that conversation go easily into the best possible place for change to happen.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, absolutely. So again, our environment, the people that we have around us, that is going to directly affect our ability to make the change that we are seeking to make. And not only that, but when we surround ourselves with the right people, with the right community, in the right environment, we may find that our original goal that we set may change and it may morph into something bigger. For instance, this show, it came about from a change. It was a change that I was looking to make in another area. And this show came about from that. And then the vision for the show became bigger. And same with us when we're trying to make change for our health. And when I say health, for me, from the mind body perspective, because, I'm a naturopath, so it's like it's all interconnected. Health to me is not only physical health, but it's also emotional health, and it's spiritual health, and it's soul health. Okay, it's my body, mind, spirit, and soul. You have to have a balance across the board for true health. So sometimes, we come in with one vision, and as we work towards that vision, when we can get out of our own heads, we come the vision may change. It may become bigger. You may start with one thing that you know you need to change, and then as you go, you may figure out that's not really the change I've really desired. It's really this over here, which is even bigger and better. But you were unable to see that bigger and better goal that's sitting out there until you started making those steps, because you can only see one point at a time. So it's very important to not only when you're setting your goals, but surrounding yourself with the means to be able to achieve that and whatever that means for you. And that it could include changing your circle, changing your community, changing your physical environment. And it's okay. It's scary to make change. It really is. I get it. I understand. But once you start making those changes and you start moving out of the comfort zone, it actually becomes exciting. And then you start wondering what's next. And so you keep going. And then before you know it, you've come so far. You've come so far because you dared to make the first step. As hard as that is, as scary as that is, you have to make the first step. And then you have to make the next step. And you just have to keep going. You have to look past the limiting beliefs. You need to release all that the old patterns. And it's not going to come easily at first. It's not going to come overnight. The challenge is that change is a challenge. So you just got to keep moving, keep adjusting, and keep going.
That's when the pains in the feet, the sore knees,
Yeah, we've talked about that
the
before.
back
Yeah.
breaks down, you can't figure out why, then the pain in the neck shows up. All those signals are the patterns that you're challenging within the body because of the changes you're making.
Yeah.
And then you have to figure out how you're going to release that pattern. And so it can be you go for a massage. It can be you find a way through the naturopathic methods to bring that ease and flow in. It might be you go to yoga, you might do Tai Chi, but you have to work yourself through whatever that sign that shows up because it's telling you where the resistance has been, but you facing it.
Yeah.
So rather than being afraid of it, be optimistic by it, and also know that if you've been gripping on and holding tight for a long time, well, that pain's going to do the same because it's going to try to fight.
Yeah.
And that's where you've got to be patient and gentle and kind. Circle yourself with the right people, and that ease, it's just going to disappear. When we moved across the country, my back seized up about halfway on the drive, and the last half of the drive was unbelievably painful. And I had to just lie on the floor because my back was so seized up. That's how much patterning was locked in there. And then
Yeah.
once we got set up and we were doing things, it all disappeared. And,
Yeah.
there's been signals like that, not always excruciating like that, but sometimes just very subtle ones. It could be like the sore foot. You can't rise up on the ball of the foot. You just can't
Yeah.
seem to get forward and get some power in your step. And that's that fear of forward, so
Yeah.
go backwards a little bit, walk around in a circle, and then go forward again, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that feels a little bit better.
Yeah. 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 We often have talked about the whole feet, legs, knees before, which is a really good point for you to bring up again, because many times when people are feeling stuck, it's going to manifest physically in problems in the feet, the legs, and the knees. Those are all about forward momentum. And so when you're feeling stuck emotionally or in life or whatever, it's often going to show up in those areas. And Michelle brought up another point too about holding on so tight. That leads me to physically muscle tension. It's like you're holding your body so tight from the emotional stress or trauma or whatever is going on that's keeping you stuck in those patterns, that eventually your physical body just starts to break down from all of that tension and stress that you're holding on to. So you're not only holding on to it emotionally, mentally, but you're holding on to it physically. And it's going to show up in all different kinds of ways. It may show up in the feet, legs, and knees, as we talked about. It may show up in the hips, another in the back. Another place is in the hips. I kind of got ahead of myself there. Another place that often shows up is in the hips, or what I call the butt area. It's like, particularly if you have some old pain that you're still dealing with. It's literally called sitting on old pain. Lots of times when you're sitting and your butt hurts, that tailbone hurts, it's because you're holding on to that old pain that is preventing you from being able to move forward in whatever it is that you're trying to do. It could be weight loss, it could be getting healthier generally, it could be skin issues, which, by the way, skin issues can also show up because guess what? When you have eruptions on your skin, that is emotions that are erupting out of your body. Okay, that is one of the ways, those trapped emotions that are just stuck in there that just want to come up. That's one of the ways it comes out. Okay, trust me on that. All right, that's part of what I do, is connecting those emotional issues with those physical issues. And that's why Michelle and I make such a great team, because she further connects it with the physical movement. So anyway, so as we were saying, it's going to be very important to surround yourself, with the right people. So to recap what we've been saying here, it's that change is hard. Okay, you have to start by setting your goal, understanding your why. You have to start trying to release all of those holding patterns, those negative emotions, those negative limiting beliefs, releasing all of that stuff that you're holding on physically and emotionally. And then finally, you have to surround yourself with the right community. You have to create the right environment, whether it's, your friend environment or your physical environment. You have to create the right environment to foster that change as well. So, now here's where it's going to get really good, because we love this subject so much that Michelle and I both have some resources and tools that we would like to extend to you. So I have created a workbook with some journal prompts in there to help you to be able to set yourself up to making lasting change. And some of the areas that this workbook will have, it will be um, identifying resistance, exploring emotional connections, uncovering limiting beliefs you may have, something like, I always fail when I try something new, or I'm not good enough, or any of those, standard ones, but there could be some unique ones to you as well. Look at the role of environment, look at the mind body connection, setting intentions, and working with fear. Many times, our resistance to change comes from a place of fear. So it's important to know what your fear factors are, and no relation to the show, but you need to know what your fear factors are so you can address them and move past them. So, if you want the workbook, you can find it on my website at livingnaturallyforlife.com/get ORC workbook. That was livingnaturallyforlife.com/ORC workbook. And it's ORC because the workbook is called Overcoming Resistance to Change. And then Michelle has some good stuff for you too. So, what do you have, Michelle, to help people that are trying to make these changes?
You can go to katebrettontea.ca, and all of the tea labels are with each of the tea blends. So you can see the intention that's already written on the package. So if you're looking at some kind of change that you want to do, you can go and check out what tea might be able to help get you there with some ease and some grace. So today we talked about releasing the warrior and the mission for change community. So you've got two options there, but you can also check to see if there's something else that's available. The other piece is on my YouTube channel, you have the opportunity, that's at Michelle Greenwell on YouTube. You have the opportunity for two sections. So one is going to be learning more about the herbs within the tea that can help with the change. So you can look at the tea playlist, and the community tea has several different ones talking about how the herbs relate with each other. And then the other piece is to go to the Tai Chi Wellness and the Seated Form series. That's a great place to get started with doing movement patterns that are easy and graceful. So you can do it seated or standing, but then just picking any one and just start doing the activity. As you go through the workbook that Michaela has set up for you, do one section, but then go pick a movement pattern. And that movement pattern is going to change how you feel and how you think. And when you go back to whatever entry you've worked on, it might have some new insights that you want to add, or you might not even feel the same way. So you can see already how quickly you might be changing. And it's a great way to synergistically bring that together. So those are my tips for you. And otherwise, I'm at greenwellcenter.com, and that's CENTER.
All right. So I encourage you to not only grab the workbook, but go check out the resources that Michelle has laid out as well. Even if you don't get the teas, like she said, each of the teas has an intention, and there's like some information that goes with it. So even if you just read that, it can help a whole lot. I have a lot of her teas, and trust me, she has been very mindful in putting these together, and they're really great for making those changes that you need to make for your future. And another part of this too is awareness. One of the things about being able to do the workbook and looking at what the T's are saying is helping you to have that awareness of yourself. So I want to encourage you that if you're looking at the movement patterns, don't get too wrapped up into which one should I do? Which one should I do? Just pick one intuitively. Okay, that's going to help you also build your own intuition and help what's inside to come up. So it's about body awareness as much as anything else. And once you start becoming aware of your own body and your own needs, it'll be easier to make those changes as you go forward in life. So, Michelle, do you have anything that you would like to end with? Some closing thoughts for us?
It's funny because when you were just saying about intuition and awareness, because I've worked so much with the feet and I do know how I stand when I'm standing, how the body feels, how the legs feel, I have that innate awareness. On my flight home last week, I got a pinched nerve. And when I stood up to stand, I could feel how the tension had completely compacted the one side of the body and how far it extended over the other side, which felt like two different bodies. But it was an awareness for me of how far I've come in learning about my body and understanding when something shifts and where it's shifted and impacted. Because then I can be very gentle to know how I need to move in order for that side to let go that's wound itself up. So I'm just going to suggest that because the more you work with those exercises and start putting those activities all together, you're going to start to really find a really strong way for you to know who you are and what your impact is and how things are affecting you. And that awareness is going to carry you a long ways. Thank you, Michaela, for this topic. It's been so awesome.
All right. So that is it for today's show. Thank you for joining us. Those of you who are watching later, thank you for watching to the end. We hope that you get great benefit out of what we presented for you here today. And we will also drop that information in the comment section for you as well. And yeah, and join us next time. You can catch Michelle and I on the first Friday of each month live. So make sure you tune in next time to see what we're going to be talking about next. And thank you all, and we'll see you next. This episode is brought to you by Living Naturally for Life, the Greenwell Center for Holistic Health, and Cape Breton Tea Company.